all of the deliveries that we saw last year, the majority of them never left the building. They were delivered, given a warrant, so that they belong part and parcel to whoever it is that bought them, but they were still inside the building. Now to see things leaving the building is just another progression in what I've been talking about for a while, and that is the most sophisticated traders on the planet are removing counterparty risk. Started in 2017 with the central banks, and here we are today, 4 years later, and they're doing the same thing now off of COMEX, and now actually pulling it off of the COMEX. Big development, something that follows this linear progression that I'm seeing. And in a nutshell, what is that? Big money front running what's coming next, period. The big money is quietly front running everything, and they are using price to misdirect us into everywhere else while they quietly scoop things up at subsidized prices and are now exiting stage left.
Some people call maple syrup liquid gold, and they think that putting it on pancakes and waffles is an idea that's pure gold. Well, at Miles Franklin, we think a pure gold idea is taking real liquid gold and turning it into real solid gold Canadian maple leaf coins. That's why right now, for a limited time, we're offering the purest gold Canadian maple leaf coins at just $105 US over spot. That's 4 nines of the purest gold there is in a pretty maple leaf design. And at only $105 US over spot, we'd say that's an idea that's pure gold.
Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're here for this weekly market update this Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 with Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. Andy, thanks for coming back on.
Good to see you again. Done again. Tuesdays seem to roll around much quicker these days. It's like a blur.
It is. It's like a day between weeks here.
I know.
And we can't even tell what day of the week it is anymore. The phone is melting, and it's the strangest thing. We keep seeing the spot price moving down a fraction each day, sometimes more than a fraction, and the demand is just, at least from my experience of receiving calls from clients, is just skyrocketing. So it's, as you said, the most counterintuitive thing you've ever seen of vaulting demand, and in the face of prices that won't follow the laws of nature. But we also wanted to talk about a tweet that was put out this past week, in fact, just a couple of days ago, by the Wall Street Silver Group, and I'll put a picture of that up on the screen, saying that they're planning on raiding again this, what should be tomorrow, Wednesday the 31st, the silver market for physical. Again, this grassroots effort of ordinary people saying, let's bring some truth to this situation. So could we start with what you're seeing, I guess, just in the general demand picture versus supply and pressures and availability? We start there and then we'll move on.
One of the things that gives me the greatest optimism is that people are talking and understanding what's going on right now with market manipulation. And you used to have to kind of cower when you'd say that, put on a tinfoil hat prior to saying it, because no one would understand that or buy into the fact that markets are controlled or manipulated. But they are now. I think people are waking up to the fact, and maybe it's an admission of guilt in the $920 million fine that JP Morgan paid, or maybe it's just the realization that there is a disconnection. As much as there's a disconnection between the highfalutin Dow indice price in comparison to its eviscerated economy underneath it. In other words, it's supposed to be a reflection of the economy, not vice versa. People are waking up to the fact that things just aren't exactly right. And even if you can't quite articulate it, they're just not exactly right. As it pertains to this industry, if you were to do nothing other than try to derive what the price should be based upon the demand that we're seeing, you and I and everyone in this industry, the price would be a whole heck of a lot higher. And I find it very interesting that as the price goes down, the demand goes up. I think what that tells me is that people are waking up to the fact that this is a situation where it can't last, and that the people that are pulling the strings, I think, are frightened by this awakening, by this realization, by the level of demand. And you can go all the way up to the top, to the COMEX market, and slide on down to SLV, to the Perth Mint, to the Royal UK Mint, and to everywhere in between, and all the way down to the lowest common denominator, buying 1 ounce rounds here, and see demand off the charts. And the fact that the price has not cooperated, I guess, for lack of a better word, to me is irrelevant. Price is a tool of misdirection. It has been forever. They use the price to misdirect the public, but I would almost argue that it's backfiring. The law of unintended consequences is taking hold, and people are aware of the price manipulation and the fact that it just doesn't make sense. So yes, the price isn't behaving, and it can wear on people's nerves, but I will tell you, from every corner that I look at, from the highest of highs to, the producers, all the way down to the retail at the end, the demand is off the charts. And so it's just not reflective. The price is just not reflective yet. But then again, I'm a big believer that the only way you can successfully manipulate a market over time is to push it in the direction it's going. And instead, they're trying to hold back a global tide of demand, and it's not abating. So does that make people feel any better? Probably not. But I will simply tell you that the fundamentals supporting a rising silver price are higher than they've ever been in my 30-year career, unequivocally. And the fact that we are seeing a greater understanding and awakening by this Wall Street Reddit group, a greater expansion into the mainstream, is giving me great optimism. And I think, sometimes you just have to shut your computer off. As I always say, trust your gut, hang on tight, because the bull's going to try to throw you off. But in terms of fundamentals, I don't see a better investment from a standpoint of fundamentals, whether it be industrial, whether it be monetary, or whether it be what's happening in the economy, or the reaction to what's happening in the economy by the Fed and the Treasury, that would support a better choice than silver right now. We're a precious metals company. We sell gold and platinum and palladium also, but nothing to me speaks to me as loudly as the argument for silver. And I truly stand by my belief that it's the buying opportunity of a generation. Yeah, you can put some cryptocurrencies up there that have made a lot of people wealthy, including Theta, which I own and love. But in terms of flat out fundamentals, old school fundamentals, I don't see anything that holds a candle to silver. I really don't, regardless of what the price is saying right now. And it will not stay at this level for long. That I can promise people.
Yeah, with human nature, what it is, I'm imagining that we'll have a number of clients calling us and saying, "Why didn't you warn me that it was going to go up once once it's less affordable than it currently is?" In the face of that sustained opportunity, I would call it, of the low prices that we're facing, people are still looking at ways of reducing risk to their family. The roots of our channel come from preparedness and the idea that we need to take prudent precautions in times of calm. I mean, just like Noah did before the flood, or just like Joseph did to store up 7 years of grain in Egypt before the famine came in. It's like you don't look around and say, is it obvious that I should be making preparations or making prudent steps for our plan B? You don't wait until it's obvious. You do it when it's not at all obvious. Although you could certainly claim, and you have, that in the past year we've seen enough strange things happening around us to say that the signs of the times are clear, that the times are changing, and we should not assume that the next 10 years is going to coast like the last 10 years in any way. So what about you interviewed on the Wall Street Silver channel not that long ago, and they're now tweeting, just as there's this every other month delivery cycle that happens on the COMEX. End of January was a delivery month. March is a delivery month. Tomorrow is the last day of March. So are we anticipating, and they certainly seem to be tweeting out that they're planning another grassroots campaign of people to get out and vote with their pocketbook and get what's real and try to shine some light of truth into this. Are you hearing that from other sources than from Wall Street Silver currently?
No, I haven't. In fact, you were the one who alerted me to it. And I do talk with Ivan and Jim at Wall Street Silver, and they're great guys. I admire them for what they have done. They've certainly caught a tiger by the tail, and they've made a remarkable impression in a very short period of time. But here again, I think the way to win this battle is not to take on the bullion banks and the COMEX, because they will change the rules and they have a lot more money than we do. And so instead, you do it starting at the bottom and you drain the cupboards of all the available silver. If globally there is no silver to be found on a retail level, it has to migrate towards the COMEX in order to get silver. It will happen. To start at the top and work down will not be a good experience, but to start at the bottom and work up and create such an understanding that this is an opportunity of a generation, which I think will happen if we continue to go this road, because the availability of silver is a full-time job trying to keep it coming in the door. Truly, truly a full-time job. And I talked to the head of my operations, and he's exasperated, working really, really hard to stay on top of it. One of the things that he says to me that I find interesting is that he's seeing a lot of dysfunction from the mints, to the point where we will order stuff and pay for it and are told we'll have it on a truck in 2 weeks. It could be 4 or it could be 5 days. It just doesn't, there's just no rhyme or reason to the way that things are happening. Everything is somewhat off the rails. And I don't know, it's somewhat chaotic. It's somewhat disorganized. And that makes me a little bit concerned. Because it never was this way. It was always very black and white and straightforward and information immediately. And now we don't even find out exactly what's on the truck to us coming from our East Coast depository until it's already halfway to our office and to our vault. So it's a very strange time. And I can tell you that the main sources of product, the primary distributors, they can't keep up either. They don't even know what's going on. They have so much demand coming from all of the retail supplies, and the mints are not very cooperative with giving out information, and very, very chaotic. It's just it's providing it's a situation right now, Dunnigan, where week to week is a mystery. And I know that we've done a really good job in the last 14 months of keeping on top of things. But when you talk about buying things now and waiting versus waiting, all I can tell you is that tomorrow's not guaranteed in this industry. And I will tell you, you don't have to take my word for it. Just go to all the online companies and look at all of the products that they have that are out of stock. Notify me, it will say. That they're all that way. The things that we used to take for granted and being able to get it, it's just completely, it's a non-event anymore. We can't get many of the things that we used to get. And if you told me that there would be no supply in 60 days, I'd believe it. I'm straight up, I would believe it, because there's really no way to gauge this when the mints keep sending mixed signals. When you're hearing from so many people that the Perth Mint is more or less out of product, from John Adams to Big Swear to Chris Marcus, everyone's shining a light upon what's going on at the Perth Mint and the UK Mint for that matter too. We've already talked about how the US Mint since the beginning of the year has been the model of inefficiency with gold and silver, as has the Royal Canadian Mint. The centers of supply are struggling. And people want information immediately, want to know what's going on, what's available, how long is it going to take? Well, we're struggling with that ourselves. So all I can simply say to you is that I think we are closer to having a major supply problem than we ever have been, simply because it's becoming harder and harder and harder to keep operations moving on a daily basis. So we've been able to keep it going, but you have to spend a lot more money and spend a whole lot more effort and do it a whole lot earlier than we ever did. What used to be a few days in advance now has to be several weeks or months in advance. And we're paying premiums double, triple, quadruple what we ever have. So at what point does everything snap? I don't know. But I can tell you the increased demand and exposure from people like you or the Wall Street Reddit group that is expanding interest into the mainstream is putting great strains and stress on the supply chain. And it can snap very quickly. And when it does, and the US and Canadian are already running, fraction of what they normally do, getting supply will not be easy. And I say that to you not to talk my book, Dunnigan, but because it's been literally our central focus for the past 14 months. And I have one gentleman, that's all he does, is talk to all of the world's mints and refineries and distributors, constantly trying to get product. One of the things I asked him about were the Perth Mint Dragon bars that they run a very small supply each year. Last year, we were able to buy almost all of it, like literally 30-40% of the entire run. This year, we were one day late and missed them all. And I said, did you get the Dragon bars? He said, I missed it by one day. They came out, they were gone in less than a day. That's what's happening. And if you as a company, we as a company, don't react to that, we miss out. And that's how fragile the supply chain has never been like that before. Normally, we could pick and choose whatever the heck we want, as much as we want, when we want it. Now it's if you're a day late, you're $1 short. Good luck. So I say this to the people so that they understand. I'm trying to come across as sincere as possible. I understand how it looks. It looks like I'm trying to push people into buying, but God is my witness. I'm not. I'm just simply trying to convey what I see every single day, and that is massive difficulty getting product on any regularity, and even more difficulty in getting information, which leads us to making educated decisions and talking to our clients in an educated manner. Now I'm kind of just hoping. In fact, I asked my guy today, do you know what's on the truck for next week? He says, no, I hope to find out today. Normally we would have found out by Friday of last week. Haven't found out yet. We will today, but that is the sign of the times. And please believe me, all you out there, this is indeed what we are seeing. And I have not seen anything that leads me to believe that it's getting any better. In fact, to the contrary, I find it to be getting more difficult to do this, more difficult to find product, more difficult to get information. And, when you see stuff on sale, like we've seen the last several days, be glad it's a subsidy. As Rick Rule often says, don't be upset when the stuff you're accumulating goes on sale. That is what you're looking for, not when it runs away on price. These are gifts. These are subsidies, especially in an environment where tomorrow's not guaranteed.
You mentioned in passing John Adams, among others, and the concern that has been swirling around the Perth Mint in particular, but other places as well, as whether they have enough physical silver on hand to cover the true ownership rights that people believe that they are entitled to underneath unallocated or pool allocated. We talked about that last time. If people are holding ETF accounts that are funds that are supposedly participating in silver and so on. That's a Australian example, and John has been doing a big job of publicizing that and alerting that. He said there's been a huge, basically a stampede of Australian investors, some of them significant investors, who are converting anywhere from a few hundred ounces to tons of silver from unallocated and pooled into allocated, or even taking physical possession, sometimes being told you can't have physical possession, and that causes a whole nother stir. But it turns out it's not just an Australian phenomenon. There's also, for example, Kitco in the North America, and David Morgan has talked about, there's a number of others as well who do offer pooled or unallocated accounts, as well as the SLV ETF that people own. And so John is really on a mission to get people to insist on the truth and insist on getting real, and encouraging everyone, if you're holding SLV, or if you're holding unallocated or pooled shares in a fund, to dump those now and go physical, go real, ideally in your hand, but at least with a fully allocated, segregated account that is trusted to have physical ownership. Anything you want to add to that? Any insights on the North American picture for people in the U.S. and Canada specifically?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make a real impact, that's how you do it. Sell your derivative style paper investment and buy the real thing. Now you're going to start to make a real dent on things. And yeah, I think a pooled account is fine when everything is hunky dory, but you can see what happens when the chips are down and people start to panic. And that is the very nature of precious metals. It's there not just for an emergency or an opportunity. I mean, it's wealth. And when you realize that you need your wealth, there should be nothing standing between you getting it. And if you have to wait weeks upon weeks upon weeks to get your product fabricated, remember that the unallocated stuff at Perth is just part of their working stock. So it could be in Dore bars, it could be in kangaroo coins, and it could be in anything in between. And if you are waiting in line to get that fabricated and then pay to have it shipped across the globe or put into an allocated storage account, what good is it? And that's what we talked about when we talked about those accounts being free. There is no free. This is the penalty you pay for free, in that if you want it, you can't get it. Well, is it worth free? So for my money, paying for a storage fee is really very important. And it's kind of like trying to drive a car without gasoline. Yeah, it's free, but you're not going to go very far. Well, when you need it, you better have some gas in the tank. Poor example, but I think people understand what I'm getting at, is that nothing is free in life, Dunnigan, and it just isn't. And I think people are realizing that. And you're right. I have had 50 emails from people who have echoed exactly what you're saying. They say, look, just want you to know, Andy, I've heard what you've been talking about. I have an unallocated account. I live in Perth. I've tried to allocate it. Not happening. And people around the United States, not just in Australia, saying the same thing. And it's because of all of the people I've ever met that own a Perth Mint contract, only 2 own it allocated. Everyone else was unallocated. And because free is nice when you're getting a service for free. But here's the back end of it. You can see that free comes with some stipulations that people may not like, and that is in particular when you need it. So I find it very distressing that's the case. But look, this was the same thing that we heard last year also. So this is not a new phenomenon, except last year it was related more to gold. And Shay Russell, who a friend of mine who writes and interviews for Agora in Australia, would say the same thing, that she was hearing the exact same thing from people regarding gold right after the Perth Mint sent tons and tons and tons of gold. I don't know the exact number, but millions upon millions of dollars worth of gold kilo bars to the COMEX to help gap stop the shortage of gold at the COMEX and the disconnection between the price and London and the price on COMEX. So anyways, bottom line is this is not new. And, there continues to be smoke from the same source. Does that mean there's a fire lurking somewhere? I don't know. I mean, I can tell you, as I've said before, from a standpoint of North American retail sales, they've been indispensable to Miles Franklin. They have provided us with a tremendous number of silver kangaroos and gold for that matter. But are they doing it at the expense of their retail customer? Seems that way to me. And should we be concerned when people who have unallocated accounts can't get it allocated, or at least in any reasonable time? Yeah, we should be. These are the things that I would expect to see before the whole thing falls apart. I'm hoping it doesn't fall apart. I've been very happy with the product we get from the Perth Mint, but the problem centering their certificate program goes many years deep. Bix Weir talked about it. Jason Hommel talked about it. Andy Hoffman talked about it. Now John Adams is talking about it, and people are talking about it. So, I guess perception is reality, and the perception is that they are in trouble. Is that true? Don't know, but I certainly could believe it if it comes out that it was, because you're seeing nonstop rhetoric over it. I will say one last time, they've done an amazing job in providing the North American retail industry with product. We are a gorilla or an elephant. The little guy on the street is the pimple on the elephant. Are they ignoring the pimple in favor of the elephant? Maybe. How does that play out in the end? I guess that's anyone's guess, but it does make me stop for a moment and think. It does raise concern and make me want to pause and think, is this the beginning of the end for regularity out of the Perth Mint? Maybe, but I don't have any proof of that. So other than to say I'm hearing the same things that you are, and maybe more from other people who are emailing me, who are clients of mine, who have this Perth Mint program also. The folks in the United States that started it, Michael Schectman, Asset Strategies, is a good friend of mine and one of the most trustworthy people I've ever known in the industry. So I don't think it has anything to do with being nefarious people selling the Perth Mint program. I just think it has to do with maybe not getting all the information that we should coming out of Perth itself. And so I guess if you own an unallocated account at Perth, maybe you try to allocate it and fabricate it, see for yourself. If not, cash it in and buy metal, buy the real thing, buy physical. And just realize that in life, nothing is free and there are no free lunches. And you'll realize that most when you need to get it back quickly and you're told, sorry, can't do it. So try to get that type of stipulation out of the equation altogether. Get the real thing, hold it yourself, and remove that counterparty risk. I think you'll be happy that you did that. And furthermore, cashing in a Perth Mint certificate's not easy. You need to go to the bank and get a medallion signature guaranteed. Send it in to the entity you bought it from, whether it be Peter Schiff or Global or Asset Strategies. Then they send it to Australia. Then you get your money back. It's not very quick. So the whole process in and of itself takes some time and some faith. And I think you do it before it becomes absolutely clear that you need to do it. Get ahead of the crowd. And I think the best way to do that is probably to cash it out and buy physical, whether you buy it from Peter Schiff, whether you buy it from Asset Strategies, or you buy it from us. I think you're better off having it in your possession than leaving it in an institution that is getting beaten up so badly, true or not, over this type of innuendo. We'll see if it plays out to be true. But for me, I wouldn't want to risk it, finding out it is true, only to be trapped inside of a system that doesn't do you any good and you thought you were prepared all these years.
One example, you mentioned ordinary investors taking action. I had a specifically large client who said he convinced some partners with him to divest themselves of any of the SLV shares they had and get into PSLV to get away from something that they believed would be less connected into something that's more connected to the physical underlying metal. And they did 300,000 ounces. So that was, some people can vote with their feet in a bigger way. Some of us would vote a lot smaller. I've had individual clients call up, buy 10 ounces, buy 20 ounces, just to say, I want to do my part to bring light to basically draining the swamp and making sure that people are insisting on what is real, insisting on what is true, so that we all find out what the truth is. It's going to be an interesting period of time.
As small as it sounds, Dunnigan, I think that's how you do it. I mean, every ounce matters. It's true because, look, there's not that much silver above ground. Really isn't. For investment purposes, maybe 1 billion ounces. And, sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when you're talking globally. And when all of the silver is gone, except what supposedly is held on COMEX, it's a whole different ballgame. Now, all of a sudden, if anything is not going to be industrial, it has to start at COMEX, get those bars pulled off the exchange. And if there just isn't any silver, at what point does the real price start to shine through? And it will. So again, don't try to take on the COMEX. Don't try to take on the bullion banks. If you own SLV, sell it for PSLV or for the real thing. Instead of trying to take 1,000-ounce bar off the COMEX exchange, buy 1,000 ounces from your local dealer or from a company like mine, and or any of the dealers out here, and that's how you win. And if all of a sudden on the evening news you hear that, geez, all the silver in the United States for investment is gone, and same thing is happening all around the globe, at what point does that start to translate into real price discovery? Here again, you can only manipulate a price by pushing it in the direction that it is going. You cannot hold back global demand like this. And that's why they've been able to do it for a very long time, is that everything moves in a cycle. And gold and silver were last in a real peak in their cycle in 1980. So they've had 40 years, basically, to push this around. And I think they're running into a circle coming back around. And we're heading into a period of time where people are looking to precious metals as a means to protect themselves against what all the nations are doing to their currency, destroying them. And this is going to be a life raft, whether it appears that way today or fully, shows itself for what it really is later on down the road. Look here again, the most well-funded, well-informed, sophisticated investors on the planet are front-running this. They've been buying it and taking possession. And one of the interesting things that I saw here in the March delivery month was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or 30 million ounces pulled off of COMEX. Now, in the last year, we saw all these deliveries on COMEX. And when they're delivered on COMEX off of the registered account, they would be given a warrant, meaning they can't be touched any longer. They're not part of what COMEX can do. They belong to someone with a warrant. But I would always think to myself, why the heck are these guys not pulling it off of the exchange altogether? Just having it leave the building? Well, I think there was some people trusting the exchanges. And now when you see 20, 30 million ounces leave the building, I don't know, could that be Tesla? Could that be Panasonic? Could that be Apple? Samsung? Are they actually doing what we said they ought to be doing? And they probably are, buying it, not talking about it, pulling it out of the building and bringing it onto their premises to secure future production. That, again, is a very big development to me because all of the deliveries that we saw last year, the majority of them never left the building. They were delivered, given a warrant so that they belong part and parcel to whoever it is that bought them, but they were still inside the building. Now to see things leaving the building is just another progression in what I've been talking about for a while, and that is the most sophisticated traders on the planet are removing counterparty risk. Started in 2017 with the central banks, and here we are today, 4 years later, and they're doing the same thing now off of COMEX, and now actually pulling it off of the COMEX. Big development, something that follows this linear progression that I'm seeing. And in a nutshell, what is that? Big money front running what's coming next, period. The big money is quietly front running everything. And they are using price to misdirect us into everywhere else while they quietly scoop things up at subsidized prices and are now exiting stage left. So we'll see what happens on the May delivery month. I expect more of the same. But let's not forget they're using other avenues to do it, including exchange for physical out of London and also backdooring the ETFs. 90 million ounces last month were taken out of SLV, after record inflow the month before in February. So all the tricks are being used by the big money, all of them centered around misdirection, which we've talked about ad nauseum. And I stick to it. The big money, privately, quietly, and with great misdirection, is doing just that, removing metal from the floor and taking possession of it now more than ever. So the big money is doing it on a big level. We can do it on a small level, and we'll meet somewhere in between. But I'm still very convinced, again, not trying to be trite, but do not let the misdirecting price throw you off the bull. And that's what they'll try to do. And for a lot of people, they will get thrown off. They will just not be able to take the pain. And this is another reason to never buy on margin. Don't buy on margin. Buy with cash, buy on the dips. Don't chase the rallies. Don't buy on margin because you'll get margined out. And that's what would have happened to a lot of people. And they just aren't going to add more money into their margin account to keep their conviction when it's moving counterintuitively to what their brain is telling them. Well, the big money knows this. They're trying to inflict as much pain as possible and get people to fall off the bull, to get people stop talking about it. It's not working. And I think the more we keep doing what we're doing, one ounce at a time, Dunnigan, we'll win this war. We may lose a few battles and get bloodied along the way, but we'll win the war if we continue to do this, because ultimately there's just not enough silver to keep the game going.
Well, every week you've been giving us a weekly special that helps people to do just what you said, in an individual basis, to take some physical off the market and have something real in their hands. This last week, it was the gold Canadian maple leaf coins at 105 over spot. So could you tell us if we're able to extend that? And you said you had an additional special, I think, in mind?
Yeah, we're going to keep the gold maple leaf special at 105 over spot as long as we can. I think we still have a decent supply of those. And with the silver kangaroo 2021 from the Perth Mint of all places, we will continue to offer that special at $5.49 over the price of silver. And I've done a lot of looking around, and I believe that to be as good of a price as you'll find anywhere in the United States. And we have a good number of those. We actually are live on those right now, where we can start delivering immediately. And we'll expect another 50,000 next Monday. So between what we have now and what's coming in next Monday, we should be able to handle just about any order. 549 over spot, any quantity, and 105 over on the gold maple leaf. So trying to do our part, trying to make it a little bit more affordable for everyone. And we're very appreciative of not only the opportunity to have a platform to talk to people on your show, but also their patronage. And given the opportunity to continue to work with them, we'll keep these specials going as long as possible.
Well, Andy, we really appreciate your joining us here and your insights into what's going on in the supply chain. And people see, we see it from the outside, you see parts of it from the inside through several layers removed of what the details are. That we really appreciate you giving us that insider's look, and always for joining us here on Liberty and Finance for these weekly market updates.
I look so forward to it every Tuesday, and I'll close my eyes and talk to you again next Tuesday as soon as I open my eyes.
We'll blink and it'll be a week later. Yeah.
Pretty much. So, hey, you have a great rest of your week, Dunnigan. And again, I know we do these on Tuesdays, and I also know that information travels at the speed of light. So if there's ever anything that we need to jump on for real quick, I'm just a phone call away. In the meantime, have a good rest of your week and a great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 7 days.
Thanks for joining us again.
Stay well.
Some people call maple syrup liquid gold, and they think that putting it on pancakes and waffles is an idea that's pure gold. Well, at Miles Franklin, we think a pure gold idea is taking real liquid gold and turning it into real solid gold Canadian maple leaf coins. That's why right now, for a limited time, we're offering the purest gold Canadian maple leaf coins at just $105 US over spot. That's 4 nines of the purest gold there is in a pretty maple leaf design. And at only $105 US over spot, we'd say that's an idea that's pure gold.
Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com.